Hello, I'm John Wagner. With my co-writer Alan Grant, I wrote the graphic novel Rok of the Reds, beautifully illustrated by Dan Cornwell and Abby Bomer. I'm very delighted that it's been nominated for the Scottish Teenage Book Prize 2020. Rok of the Reds is the story of the world's first alien footballer. He's an alien of almost magical powers who's fleeing galactic assassins and ends up on a galactic backwater called planet Earth. There he takes on the identity of the first human being he meets, who happens to be none other than bad boy footballer Kyle Dixon. And in Dixon's identity, he develops a strange love of the beautiful game, leading lowly Radford Reds on a great cup run. But the galactic assassins are closing in. Will they catch up with Rok before Radford Reds can win the cup? You'll have to read the book to find out. A graphic novel is a bit like a film script. A writer, once you've discussed the whole thing over with your chosen artist, writes a full script as you detail what happens in every page, what happens in every picture of the page, along with the dialogue, what characters are saying to each other. The script is then sent to the artist who illustrates it. He can make changes if he likes, but generally stick fairly close to the script that you've outlined. And then it's sent back to the writer or writers again for making final alterations. So in effect, on something like Rok of the Reds, you get not one imagination working on it, but in our case, four. The two writers, the artist and the colorist. And I think that's one of the big strengths of graphic novels. Aliens and sci-fi and football, it really did appeal to Alan Grant and I when we were designing an anthology comic. That's a typical old British comic with maybe about 10 different stories in it. And we were looking for something new on football. What could be new? Aliens. An alien footballer, could we make that work? So we wrote up the first script. We really loved it. And then we put it away in a drawer for 25 years. The reason being that we didn't think we could make the anthology comic work. But then a few years ago, I was looking for something new to do, and I pulled Rok of the Reds out of my drawer, looked at it, and I thought, this is too good to remain in the drawer. Why is Kyle Dixon such a rotter? Well, we were going to do some terrible things to Kyle Dixon, and we wanted to show the contrast between a decent, although frightening looking alien and a rather horrible human being. So it was necessary for Dixon to come over as someone you didn't like, someone you wouldn't mind having shrunk to the size of a Barbie doll. Advice, if you're looking to get into comic books, either as a writer or an artist, I usually have three bits of advice that I give to people. One is, if you want to be a writer, then write and keep writing, because the more you do something, the better you get. You're never going to be great at the beginning, but the more you do it, the more you'll learn. And the same applies to art. I've seen artists that I didn't think would ever make it who turned into brilliant illustrators just because they kept doing it and they kept learning. The second piece of advice is something I learned in Dundee when I worked for DC Thompson's, is that nothing you do cannot be improved upon. So never be satisfied with something you do. Look at it and look, when you've written a script, you look at every aspect of that script and say, how can that character come over better? How can this scene be more effective? Always question yourself and keep questioning yourself. And the third bit of advice is, when you do have a little success, get along with your editor, because the editor's the person who buys your material. So I've always made a point of being very chummy with my editors. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy reading Rock of the Reds and the other books on the shortlist for the Scottish Teenage Book Prize 2020.